Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to break down the anatomy of school bullying. Now, that's a term we all think we know, right? But what are the social dynamics that really, truly drive it? Let's take a much closer look.
So, let's start with a really crucial distinction, one that honestly gets blurred all the time. Is what's happening just a conflict, a bad joke, or is it actually bullying? Figuring out that difference is the absolute first step. Okay, so here's the core difference. A conflict, it's a two-way street. It's generally balanced, and both people have some power to work it out. But bullying? That's a totally different animal. It's a one-way attack. It's defined by an imbalance of power, it's repetitive, and it makes it almost impossible for the person being targeted to stop it on their own.
To really get to the bottom of this, we're going to tackle it in 5 parts. We'll start by redefining the problem, then we'll pinpoint where it happens, explore the social dynamics at play, understand the true cost, and finally, look at how an entire school community can fight back.
First up, more than just a fight. Let's really establish what we're talking about here, because bullying is way more complex than just a simple scuffle in the schoolyard. It's a social process.
This definition is so important. According to sources like UNESCO, bullying isn't just one kid being mean. No, it's a social process. It's shaped by group dynamics, by what's considered normal at a school, and by how the school itself responds, or, fails to respond.
So where does a social process like this actually take root and grow? Well, that brings us to our second section, the bullying hotspots. We're going to look at where it happens, and just as important, why it happens there.
Bullying isn't random. It tends to thrive in very specific places. Think about it. Hallways, bathrooms, the bus, the schoolyard, changing rooms. What do they all have in common? Well, they're places with a lot of eyes, a lot of social action, but not a lot of adult supervision. They're the in-between spaces of school.
And here's the really modern, tough challenge. Those hotspots, they now stretch way beyond the school gates. They follow kids home into these digital afterspaces. We're talking class chats, social media. For many, it means there is literally no escape. The school day and its social pressures just never end.
And listen, this isn't just a hunch or a feeling. The data absolutely backs this up. The 2022 PISA survey found that about 1 in every 10 students feels actively unsafe in these exact spots, the hallways, the bathrooms. That's a huge number of kids who are just trying to get through their day, feeling anxious and on edge.
Now, here's where it gets really fascinating. Bullying is almost never just a two-person show. It's actually more like a social performance, with a full cast of characters, and everyone is playing a specific role.
Just look at this breakdown. It's so revealing. The aggressors themselves, they're a small minority, only about 10%. Their power gets amplified by followers, sure, but the biggest, most critical group, it's the bystanders. They make up this huge silent majority, and the defenders, the kids who step in, they're often just as few and far between as the aggressors.
And that's the core of it right there. The group's reaction, or more often their lack of reaction, is what fuels the whole thing. The aggressor is basically performing for an audience, and when that audience is silent, it's taken as approval. It gives them the social permission to just keep going.
So this social performance, it has a devastating cost, and it leaves behind these scars that aren't always visible. Which brings us to Section 4, the hidden scars.
The scale of this is just staggering. Data from the German school barometer suggests that as many as 1 in every 3 adolescents is dealing with regular harassment. Think about that. This isn't some rare thing. For a massive number of students, this is a routine, painful part of their life at school. The first consequence is just this deep, profound sense of loneliness. This feeling of being totally and completely cut off from the very community you're supposed to be a part of every single day. And that constant state of stress and fear leads to very real physical symptoms, like trouble sleeping and chronic anxiety. That stress doesn't just magically switch off when the school bell rings. It follows you home.
Over time, all of this just erodes a person's sense of well-being. Study after study links being bullied to a real, measurable drop in a person's overall satisfaction with their life.
And this right here really drives home the educational impact. Bullying is a direct roadblock to learning. I mean, how can you concentrate on math or history when your brain is constantly in survival mode? It just can't. Learning requires safety, period.
But here's the good news. This is not an unsolvable problem. The same social dynamics that create it can also be used to take it apart. So let's move to our final section, how we can actually address this.
because it really does take an entire school.
Okay, so what works? The research is crystal clear. Piecemeal, isolated programs don't really move the needle. The most effective strategy is what's called a whole school approach. It means having clear rules, more supervision in those hotspots, creating reporting channels that kids actually trust and use, and, this is the big one, fostering a shared, school-wide culture that says bullying is absolutely unacceptable. It makes prevention the school's responsibility, not just the kid's burden.
I think this quote just captures it perfectly. Of course, schools aren't to blame for every single social problem that walks through their doors, but they absolutely hold the power. They are the central lever to create an environment where bullying just can't thrive.
So we'll end with this question, because the big takeaway here is that real safety, it isn't just the absence of violence. It's the active, daily, visible presence of a protective and supportive community. It's a culture that has to be built on purpose, not just by accident.